So, Larry, welcome.
I'd love to kick it off with some e-collar questions. I know that is your, well, it is your specialty, hey, even though you kind of say, I'm not the e-collar guy.
No, definitely, it really isn't my specialty, but I'm okay if people think that, right?
Okay.
If I could help people in that area see it in a different way,
Mm.
totally cool. I'm okay with it. I used to not be. I used to get upset by that,
Yeah,
right?
I've seen a few posts about that. Yeah.
Well, Sana, it's just because it's such a small part of what I do with the dog. Like it's literally almost non-existent,
Right.
but there's a way to get there too. So I get it. And so if I'm going to have a voice in that, then I'm going to do it the best I can for sure.
That's awesome. Alrighty. So the e-collar has a lot of stigma, right? Its purpose, how to use it. I think we, like Tony, you and I, we all deal with clients that have read or heard about the e-collar, and it's this torture device to people. So
Yeah,
would you be able to explain why the e-collar is a safe or dog-friendly tool? Like I just had to talk to a client about it and trying to convince them, like, this is not a torture device. This is actually
sure.
a good tool. Like, how do you go about that when you get clients?
I don't have to anymore, which is nice, right? I've been doing it long enough and I've put enough stuff out there over the years.
Mm.
I think I started putting out videos when YouTube at least was new to me around 2008.
Yep.
And a lot of them back then were focused on the e-collar just because I was trying to change the perception that people had of the tool, right? So today, when people contact me or come to me, it's not even I don't have to convince anyone, but I also don't push it on them,
Mm.
and if someone were to come to me today and say, I don't want to do any e-collar training, I'd be like, "Oh, thank God," right? Because it makes my job easier.
Yeah.
It makes my job much easier because when it comes to that tool, I have to put in the time, even though I'm going to do a lot of the training. Well, it's the board and train anyway, right?
Mm.
But I want the people to understand the concept. And it's very hard for people to understand that the e-collar is no different than a leash. It's just gives you the ability to do a little something from a distance, right?
Right.
So the way I teach it is very specific and conservative for a reason.
Mm.
It's geared towards the everyday dog owner that doesn't have dog training ability, and that's certainly going to make mistakes. They're going to. Like, there's no question. I tell every client I start with, you're going to screw this training up. Not just the e-collar training, all the training,
Anything.
right?
Yeah.
Mm.
But if we stick to this process, which I've used for a really long time, very successfully, you're not going to mess up your dog. And that's really important. And what blows me away, ladies, is to this day, there's still a ton of dog trainers out there that don't understand the full concept. They put all the emphasis on the dog. You don't need this for the dog. You could skip this part with the dog. I don't put the emphasis on the dog. The dog's not a problem.
Mm.
The whole emphasis goes on the everyday average dog owner that things don't come easy to.
Yeah.
But if they go through this process, it's going to force them to be better handlers, and they're going to mess it up, but they're not going to mess up the dog. If we go straight to just utilizing this tool to implement, corrections or punishment, or even just to reinforce behaviors the dog knows, and just using it when you have to in the beginning without that short education time we use to teach the dogs, you're going to destroy a lot of dogs. And anyone who says otherwise, go back to the beginning of the first e-collars,
Mm.
right? For many years, up until mid 2000s, people that utilized a tool like that, and many still do to this day, will destroy a lot of dogs. so-called balanced dog trainers don't like to hear that because they don't want to talk about that because it gives the force-free community ammunition. They look at it like that, right? Now, I'm always going to be honest about things. There's a reason why the force-free community don't use my videos or come after me with the e-collar, because they can't. They can't, because there's too many people on that side. When they see my clients or my dogs, it doesn't make sense to them. Like, wait a second, like these dogs kind of look like they're having a good time. This isn't what we expected. You know what I mean? So that's something I've always taken really, really. I just took it as a personal responsibility to help. I don't like seeing dogs destroyed through training with any tool, anyways, right?
Yeah.
And it was just my part that I could do. But guys, with all the seminars I do a lot of them. I've been doing them for like 10, 11 years now. The e-collar, I literally could tell you on one hand how many times we've used an e-collar at these seminars. And it's usually only because someone wants to introduce it to their dog or fix previous problems.
That was my
It's not
dog.
something, yeah, it's not something I turn to fix things, right? It just, there's so much more that goes on before that. But that other side, that force-free side, they don't understand that. You'll hear things like, if I'm showing behaviors, oh, like, you never see e-collars on my dogs. That's for a reason. I do that for a reason. And my clients, they're never really needing to utilize that e-collar because of the way we teach it. And if I know a client has to use it every day for some reason, then I did something wrong in teaching the client, the owner, the human. Because, like, I had a client the other day who had a very difficult dog, a Rottweiler, very strong Rottweiler. He has multiple Rottweilers, a couple of Rottweilers. His dog can't be around dogs, and there was in-home fighting. And now his dogs are left home alone, no more fighting, not because of the e-collar, because of all the training. But he said something that was really important to me the other day. He said his dogs are off leash, running in nature, and he hasn't touched that button in 2 years, in over 2 years, right? It's on just in case he needs it for an emergency, but he hasn't touched that button in over 2 years. That's the way I teach it. That's what I want to see from my people. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I don't do a lot of e-collar work. If I use it, it's only for like a solid recall. And, you always get the question, so when do I not have to use the e-collar anymore? Always.
Right.
I'm like, I
Right.
don't know. It might be on your dog for a year, but we kind of want you to not use it for like after a month. Like, it's only there as a backup. And if you need it, then you use it.
Sure. Tell them to stop putting the e-collar on their dog when they stop wearing their seatbelt. That's when you could stop.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
That's it. If your dog's going to be off leash, it's just there for safety, right? For that what if moment, because even the best trained dogs, you just never know. It's there for that what if moment. That's it. So I'm guilty lately because my dogs are really, really good, and I could take any of them out into the woods and hiking, and I don't need the e-collar, and I find myself putting it on less and less. But then that becomes hypocritical because I tell people, look, guys, just if the dog's going to be off leash, put it on, right? If he's going to be off leash in nature or out in public, put it on just in case. If your dog's not going to be off leash, then don't worry about it. You don't need it. For me, there's no purpose for it because, like you said, it's there to reinforce when you need that recall, no matter what, right? And that's the main purpose for me and my clients. My dogs, my clients' dogs. I'm not utilizing it in obedience. I'm not doing that kind of stuff where it's constantly being used. It's just not the way I do things with it. It's really simple, really basic.
I can be a little bit bad as well myself because I have a Labrador who is just super easygoing. She follows me everywhere, super food motivated, like just wants my company all the time. But again, I can get a bit complacent with putting the e-collar on her. Her thing is picking up food, so I need to recall her away from stuff, and most of the time no problem. But there is that maybe like 1% where she might just go and see something, like someone's dropped a sandwich on the ground and I haven't seen it because it's been in the long grass, and I need that immediate like comeback because she is super, super food motivated. Like, it's her whole hold
So
on,
am
I
I.
can't. Yeah, I mean,
We know.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I can't expect her not to be motivated by it. I mean, it's food, and she's a Labrador, so I had to really get my head back into it. That, like, just because my dog has really good recall, I should have it on her
Yeah.
anyway, just in case of those emergencies. Because what if she picked up like a cooked chicken bone and got it stuck
Sure.
or something, right? It's for
Yeah.
safety reasons.
Sure. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I'm like that too, actually. I never have it on my dogs.
Yeah,
Only if I go to a new area that I don't know. And it's just, I mean, I can totally put it on, but yeah, it is complacency because I'm like, oh, I trust my dogs. But it is that one time that you might need it and it's not on. It is modeling,
Right.
isn't it? But yeah, I get what you mean with do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, totally. And listen, the older I get, like I break all kinds of my own rules now. I'm so much more laid back about everything. Like my Chihuahua, like I don't do anything with. He's just my wife's dog. He lays on her. If she's she's laying on the couch right now watching Bridgerton, I guess it is.
Oh yeah.
And he's just sleeping on her belly, and he's not going to move for hours. And we just love on him and let him be a dog. I don't treat him like most people treat little dogs,
Yeah.
but I've definitely eased up over the years. But I think again too, the more you know, the more you understand the animal, the more free you could be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, you've kind of answered part of our second question already, but we just wanted to ask, what situations would you recommend the e-collar would be a great option to utilize for training? Is it suitable for all breeds and ages? And when would you not use the e-collar?
Well, for me, it helps all dogs. Like there is the only time where I would tell someone, look, don't even bother with the e-collar. That is, well, okay, for one, my Chihuahua's never had one on. I'm not against using it for little dogs. 'Cause I train little dogs the same I train big dogs, right? But I don't like a 6-pound dog with a giant block on their neck. Like that's a big turnoff to me.
Same.
I don't even want him off leash outside because of hawks and, big birds of prey. An e-collar is not going to help that. You understand? So he's usually on a long line of flexi or something more. And I'll have him off leash when he's with Mango and they're playing outside. But otherwise, I'm not going to have him hiking off leash. It's too dangerous for a dog that small. I hate when I hear someone say, oh, this dog's a good candidate for e-collar training, because that tells me right there, you have a very different opinion and outlook on the tool than I do, right? So it's going to benefit all dogs, but it's just a very small part of training, right? A very small part of training. But again, what I tell people is if you're never going to have your dog off leash, then don't worry about it. Like for me, it makes no sense to walk around with a dog with a prong collar and e-collar on leash. If that's what people do, that's okay. It's not like I'm not dogging them. For me, it doesn't make any sense. You understand? Because if I have to give guidance to a dog on leash, I'm always going to use, for the most part, the leash. It's much more personal. It sends a very different message to the dog, I feel. And a lot of people want things to be very impersonal, and there is a time and place for that. But for the most part, a big part of the way I train and where the success comes in with the dogs is I have that connection with them. I want to be very personal with them. When I'm really happy with what they're doing, when I'm not so happy with what they're doing, I want the dog to take into account, oh my God, like we're so happy together right now, or oh, he's really upset. I shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean? But again, that's just me. I tried to be less judgmental as I'm getting older, because I used to be really bad, It was just like, and nothing good comes of that. It doesn't help anyone. So now I tell people, if someone calls and says, hey, I'm thinking of training with so-and-so, what do you think? Hey, you check it out and see how you have to make the decision, right? Unless I know someone's doing really bad things to dogs or robbing people, then I will be very vocal about that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think you got to just let people do their thing and let them figure out what's best for them.
They're not going to listen anyway. otherwise.
Exactly,
It's kinda
exactly.
like it's the
Yeah.
truth. Like they have this in their head, they're gonna do it. It's like, because you
Yeah,
can try it and then come back to me and they'll fix it for you. No,
yeah, yeah.
sometimes, not all the time. Like, yeah, that
I
actually,
don't have a good poker face. I notice, like, if someone asks me, "Hey, I'm going to be going to train with so and so," or "Hey, I'm having someone out to do a seminar, this person," and if I'm just like, "Ah, cool," right? If I just say that, they'll go, "Okay, what's wrong? Why shouldn't I?" I'm like, "No, I didn't say nothing." Yeah, but you didn't like say, "Yeah, it's
you
awesome."
didn't have to.
Yeah.
I said, I didn't say anything. They're like, that's the point. You didn't say anything. What are you not telling me? I'm like, no, just do your thing and see how you like it. That's all, but it kind of gives it away how I
Yes.
feel, really, so I
Yeah.
don't know. I'll be better.
Yeah. I'm like, I reckon, Tony, you would be really good with that because you're way more polite than I am. Like, I'm the same as that. I'm like, yeah, I've heard of them, It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I've definitely like had clients and they'll be like, "Oh, we went to this person before," and I'm like, "Oh, yeah," and then they're like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Oh, like it's all good. Like we're working together now," and they're like, "Oh." So I
Yeah,
definitely, I mean, or if they're like, "Oh, we're thinking of going," like we've looked into a couple, like because I never like make anyone come to me or anything. I'm like, go back and have a think about it. And they're like, and they might be like, "Oh, well, we're meeting with a couple of other trainers." And then I'll be like, "Oh, who are you meeting with?" And then they'll be like, "Oh, so and so." And I'll be like, "Oh." And so, because I know for a fact that those ones definitely aren't
sure.
to me ethical. And then they'll be like, "Oh,"
Yeah.
and I'm kind of like, I'd rather them just not even, if I
Mhm.
really know that they're not ethical, I'd rather just kind of give a subtle hint, maybe don't go to those people. But overall, I'm kind of the same. Like I try and be, "Oh, okay," but not try and voice my opinions too much.
Yeah,
mm,
a while back, and it wasn't that long ago, when people used to call me um, and ask me about, maybe signing up with me. I would talk to them for a while. Like as long as they wanted to talk, I would talk. And normally people had a good response to it, and they're like, okay, I think I'd like to sign up. And I would always tell them, no, I think what you need to do is, before you make that decision, I said, look, it's a really important decision what you're making. You're going to spend a lot of money and you're trusting someone with something that's really important to you. So before you think you want to sign up with me, I advise you to call every single dog trainer around the Nashville area and interview them just like you did me. It's important.
mm,
And I want you to do that. And they, a lot of times they'd be like, well, no, I'm really happy with you. I said, no, just do me a favor. It's important because you might find someone that you're more comfortable with. And that's who I want you to go with. I said, now, the one thing I will offer you that I think you should ask everyone if they would do the same.
mm.
I will meet you in public with my dogs with no tools on, off leash, just so you can meet me and them. And if someone else won't do that, then maybe it's far-fetched for them to get your dogs to that situation. You understand? So ask if that's something they're willing to do. And if they're willing to do that, then they're probably pretty good at what they're doing, but I will do that for you. And we could all do it at the same time. Have a bunch of trainers in one area. Here's my dogs. How you doing? And let me see your dogs, right? Because
It's like a dog training pissing contest.
yeah, because let's think about it. If you take your car to a mechanic and they mess up your car or they don't fix what they say, you demand your money back, right? No one does that in dog training. People mess up dogs all the time, and I've never heard a client say, I went and got my money back. They just accept it. It's almost the normal, and that's really disappointing, and it's scary. It really is that people don't have very high expectations when they pay a dog trainer, and it needs to change.
Yeah, I think that is tricky though, right? Because then you get into that slippery slope of what did the owner do to
Of course,
maintain, right? So, because I
of
like
course.
that you said, oh, it's like a mechanic, because I often say on social media, dog training is the opposite of a mechanic. We
Yeah,
you
yeah.
don't bring the dog in and fix it. We go to the gym and work with the personal trainer, right?
Hmm.
And
Right.
it kind of like flows into our next question anyway, because I think a lot of dog owners think, oh, training, well, I'm doing 30 minutes of training and that's all I do. And I think you are massive about spreading the word about, well, training is the whole day. It's how you live with your dog. And I love to talk about that because honestly, it gets me every time. And I find it hard to explain to people as well. Like the training with your dog isn't just, oh, you did 10 minutes of sit and down practice. Like that's not even that relevant, in the big picture.
No, it's insane. And again, the average dog owner, they think that training is that time you set aside to go outside and work on sit and down and come and place and all those things. That I ask my clients when they first start working with me, whether it's through a board and train or private lessons, I'll ask them, I say, hey, do me a favor. I need you to give me 5 minutes twice a day of obedience. And they always look at me sideways like, that's it? I'm like, yeah, that's it. If you do 5 minutes twice a day, you're going to continue to get better in the obedience. If you want to do 10 minutes, that's great. Do it. But just give me at least 5 twice a day. I said, but there's a catch. You have to give me 24/7 inside the home, right? That means the reason you called me, we have to identify those bad habits, what created the bad behaviors. And we already did that. We already identified where you went wrong. We're going to replace them with good habits. It's no more work. You already doing something. Now we're going to just do a little something different, right? You're going to set very clear rules and boundaries inside the home, and we're going to be very clear and consistent on what's expected inside the home. That's where the behavior is created, good and bad, right? Then you could build that relationship through formal obedience and play. And if you do those things, you're going to get better. It's very difficult to fail if you do those things, but you can't ignore the little things, right? I have 2 dogs here right now that are a prime example. I have Rhodey, the Rottweiler, which she's always here. I'm like her second home, and I adore her. Like she's like one of my favorite dogs of all time, but I feel like she's my dog. And then I have Keela, the German Shepherd, female Shepherd, who is batshit crazy. They're both crazy bitches, right? Like extreme. They do phenomenal with me. The problems that they have at home, they don't give me those problems, right? It's not because like they're scared to act up or do bad things. They're crazy about me and they trust me, and I'm very clear on what I expect from them. And I give them exactly what they need to really fulfill them genetically, right? Physically, mentally, and they love being with me. But when they go home, they're a lot of dog for the average household. Like they're really intense dogs. Keela is maybe the best female shepherd I've ever worked with. She's got a lot. She's nuts. So you put her in a regular home where people just want to take her for a walk. Well, she's like, I don't want to go for a walk, right? She walks nice with me, but she knows she really doesn't have a choice, right? She just does it.
Yeah.
But at home, she sees a dog, she's pulling down the street and going crazy and lunatic. So for me, I have to change the way I'm working with the owners in those cases. And I have to simplify it for them in a way that they're going to be able to succeed. And that's not always easy when you have such a mismatch in dog and human, too much dog, right? Way too much dog. Rhodey is a little different. She's really high energy, but like most Rottweilers, you don't have to give her much physically and then she's happy and could rest, but she's crazy intense, right? And she doesn't know how to handle that intensity when other dogs are put into the situation. So she could play with my dogs. She's fine with any dogs I'm here training. But if you put her in a home where like people want to see her play with other dogs, that's a bad idea. Right? It's a bad idea because it's going to take one dog to do something wrong to her. And she's like, okay, screw it. Now you're mine.
Oh, yeah.
As to where I could say, hey, knock it off, Rhodey. And she's like, oh, okay. Right. But I have that relationship with her. So that's a fine line to walk. And it's not easy. Like teaching the human is by far the hardest part in all of this. Right. And some are more difficult than others. Some learn in different ways. And so if I see that I'm failing on that end, I have to change something. I can't blame them. If they're just not doing the work, then that's fine, right? But I'm going to take that blame first. Why haven't I educated these people enough to where they can handle this? So I have to go back to the beginning and let them do all the handling and put them in that situation and see why they're failing, right? Why is this dog acting like this? But I could tell you, in both cases, it's almost always because of what they can get away with inside the home, right? Because we could take both those dogs to a park off leash with dogs around, and they're just going to be wanting to play with me. But if the owner does that, that's going to be, I shouldn't even say, they'll probably do it for them too, until there's something too tempting or they put the leash on. Then the leash destroys everything, right? So again, that off leash freedom is a really big component to helping dogs with behavioral problems. Like, it's huge, and it's not talked about very much. Allowing a dog to be off leash and be a real dog, to run and explore and jump on things and run around and chase each other, that is a huge part of helping dogs with big behavioral problems. And it's very rarely discussed. I don't think I've ever heard it discussed. For me, that's a big part of my program, getting dogs to be able to do that.
And is that with other dogs? Like, or when the dog goes home, would you then recommend, as long as the dog can be off leash, even just running around by itself without other dogs, that still helps?
Yeah, it's absolutely. Absolutely. It really even doesn't have anything to do with other dogs. What the everyday dog owner has trouble understanding, they humanize these animals and they want to see their dogs play with other dogs.
Yeah.
And if you have that happy-go-lucky Labrador or Golden Retriever that really loves to do that, then sure, great, that could be fantastic. But my dogs are all fantastic with other dogs, but they don't play with other dogs. I don't need them to do that. I just want other dogs to be neutral, right? Just neutral. Hey, there's a dog, there's a person. Like neutral. And if I find it beneficial for a dog that I'm training to play with my dogs, then I'll do that. I'll match them up with the right dog. But when the average person tries to make that happen, let's say it goes well, no problems, and they keep playing with dogs. But now all of a sudden they're walking their dog down the street and it's an intense Rottweiler and they see a dog. And now the Rottweiler, well, I play with dogs. I want to go say hi. And the owner's like, hey, get back here. And the dog's like, no, I want to go over there. I don't want to fight. I just want to go play. And now they can't. Now that leash becomes the thing that's stopping them. And here comes the frustration, right? Here comes the aggression, the reactivity, and it just turns into a shit show. People don't understand how important that those little things are, right? It matters. It matters a lot, you know?
Yeah, I talk about that a lot here because New Zealand is huge about pack walking. Like Tony is a really good pack walker, and there is heaps of them here, and there's lots of daycares. But I think dogs are being over socialized. They have so much socialization that when they see a dog, they have no idea. Like, I can just sit still and look at a dog. I don't have to be like about it.
Yeah. They're being forced into play dates.
Yeah, all the time. And I mean, that's what I do mostly. I fix leash reactivity. Like, I don't really do off-leash stuff because I don't feel comfortable with that. But leash reactivity is one of my main issues. And the first question I ask is, does your dog go to daycare? And if the answer is yes, then I already know what caused it.
Yeah, so I would say that's a big part of my training as well. So especially one of the big things that I have actually is a lot of people inquire for my pack walking is one of the big things. And before I even look into that area for pack walking, we go over like the dog's strengths and weaknesses and everything. And sometimes I'll even recommend training we do training even before we even look into pack walking, because some dogs are just over socialized from the beginning and then they want to bring their dogs in, and it's just not the right environment for them at that point in time. And so I say to them, like, would you like to do some training and we can work on your dog's engagement with you and everything? Because often what's been going on is they're doing like the same things. They're going to dog parks and everything. And what they want is they want help with their dogs with leash reactivity. So they think, oh, well, if my dog does pack walks, then that's going to help them. And I'm like, well, that's not going to help you. Like, I'm happy. I've got dogs that are like what you've said. They have issues for their owners, but I have no issues with them on pack walks. Like, I've got some dogs, if they're with their owners, the sight of a dog, they would explode with them. With me, they can be off lead. They can move to the side for pretty much they'll move to the side for anything. They're completely relaxed in the group. They're super reliable, solid dogs in my group. And I just don't have those issues. And so I'm really trying to start helping my owners to have that relationship outside of pack walks with them as well, because often they'll come to me and be like, I don't know how you do it. And I'm just like, well, I have those boundaries. I have that trust from the get-go, from the beginning, that like dogs aren't going to come into your space because a few of my dogs that are reactive, it's a lot of insecurity as well from being like taken to dog parks and, or just the owner's not real, and it's not their fault because they don't understand.
Sure.
But just having good intentions, but it's just not the right way to do it. So either going to daycare,
Right.
lots of meetups with lots of dogs, and then so they've just got like this trust breakdown, whereas I've come in straight from the beginning, and for the first few walks together, they don't even meet any dogs really with me. Like it's just me and them. And then I might bring in my personal dog, and then they learn, okay, well, this dog doesn't come into my space. That's cool. And then once they're good with that, then I'm like, well, I'm going to bring in a couple of my pack walking dogs that they'll walk with, but they're not going to interact with each other. They're just going to walk.
Right.
And yeah, like that's all I do for like a few sessions. And then it gets to the point with the dogs, they're like, oh, just nothing happens with these dogs. We're just neutral. All we do is just walk together.
Yeah.
And so I've got one client at the moment that I'm working really hard with them, because they honestly came to me and they're just like, I just don't know what to do. And they listened to our recent podcast about reactivity, and they were just like, oh my God, like I've done all of these things that like
Right. Yeah.
all these things wrong. And I'm like, that's cool. Like we can build that relationship back up. It's not the end of the world. Like we can build it up. So we did some sessions of just, teaching that trust back again, but also having those boundaries in place as well. Like you've got to change it in the house as well. But again, I didn't go over any obedience stuff with them either. Like I didn't go like the sit and down and all that's necessary or anything. All I worked on was building that trust up and helping the dog make better decisions as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's a big mistake when trainers deal with a behavioral issue and they attack the issue, right? And it's like you said, you broke it down. You just went on walks, no dogs, right? When that was good, then you introduce your dog that don't give a damn, and that helps the dog and you break it down to baby steps. And I say that all the time. If a dog comes to me with a behavioral problem, especially a big problem, I don't put him in that situation for 2 or 3 weeks. Like if he's going to be staying with me, he's going to be here for a while, and I'm going to build that dog everything I need right here on my own property, me and her, right? And when that dog truly trusts me and is crazy about me and our communication system is there, the dog knows what's expected. Then when I introduce him, if I take him for a walk for the first time, and he's a dog that goes crazy when he sees dogs, one of two things always happens. Either the behavior is not there at all anymore, or it's very mild. And when he starts to show it, I can say, hey, buddy, knock that off, And it's like the dog goes, oh, you mean like I have to do that everywhere now, right? Not just at the house? Yeah, absolutely. It's really easy when you don't jump in and start creating a lot of conflict, trying to punish that behavior out of them or trying to redirect it out of them with food and play and toys. I prefer to teach the dog as much as I can away from it. Then once the dog is finally in that position, let the dog make the decision. If he makes the wrong decision, we'll talk about it. Me and the dog will have a conversation. I'll let him know that's the wrong choice, buddy. It's not what I want. But if he makes the right decision, I'm also going to let him know, nice job, pal. Very nice. Guess what I got? Boom. Now maybe here comes the tug and we're playing, right? He's already built to love that game, and I let the dog make the choice. I don't try to convince him, hey, look what I got. Shove food down his face. And I'm not saying there's not a place where that could be beneficial at times, but I think so many trainers are scared to allow the dog to make the decision. And we have to get to a point where the dog learns how to make good decisions. That's the end goal, right? Where when it comes down to the end of it, we want the dog to respond in the best way possible with no tools in the real world. I would think that's what everybody wants to train for, and that should be the goal. It makes sense to me,
Absolutely.
For sure. And actually, part of watching your videos for a very long time, that's actually
I'm
where
sorry.
I actually got a lot of...
I'm so sorry.
No, I love them. That's where a lot of my thinking when I went into pack walking was doing a lot of the work before even bringing in any dogs, was
Nice.
from watching you. And I got your e-collar book, and that's when I learned e-collar training, because I wanted to start kind of getting a bit more engagement with some of my dogs, and I had no idea how to do it. So I got your book. So thank you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. That makes me happy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're talking a lot about building trust and building relationship. And it makes sense to us, right? But this is not a dog trainer podcast, but a dog owner podcast. So I'm trying to see if can we break this down a little bit? Like what would you suggest an owner does with their dog when you say like, oh well, they need boundaries. Like, are there any like hard lines that you said this you need to do this with your dog? Or you do that
Sure.
with every dog, or this is a really good way to build relationship. Like what could an owner do at home that
Great question. And I love that you said this is geared towards dog owners, because that's my thing. That's where I've put all my time. So that's important. I literally just made a post 2 hours ago, if that, about a couple of different things, right? The first thing I said was like all dogs should explore, travel, walk, right? See new places, both in a nice loose leash heel in control next to you, and also free, whether you have to use a long line or your dog could be free to explore and sniff and do dog things. Like they have to have that exploring together is huge. That's why it's so beneficial in like pack walks or two dogs that hate each other moving forward, walking together is very beneficial. That's something that all people can do, no matter where you live, no matter what your lifestyle, your economic background, it doesn't matter. Everyone can walk their dog and explore together, right? Homeless people do it every day very successfully, okay? Also, after that, really getting into the dog through play, fetch, tug, but in a sincere, meaningful way. Everyone could do that. Maybe your dog doesn't play tug, but it likes to chase a ball, right? Utilize that. If it doesn't like to do anything in play, well, if your dog likes food, we could play with food. We won't go too deep into that, but we want to use that play not only to strengthen the relationship, but you could build your whole communication system in there. And the everyday dog owner can do that. But what most people don't understand, you're also setting rules and boundaries in those games. And you get to teach your dog everything it needs to know in the real world, right? That's a whole separate video we can go deep on. Then, of course, the stuff inside the home. There has to be clear and consistent rules and boundaries that you have to apply. You cannot give your dog too much freedom. One of the biggest mistakes most dog owners make, right? Giving too much freedom inside the home before the dog is ready. Then you're having accidents, the dog's peeing or pooping when you're not looking, or it's chewing the leg on your furniture. Those are human errors, not dog errors, right? So for me, I am insane when I have a puppy. I don't let them out of my sight, right? They're with us socially. They could be in an X pen or a crate with the family, or if they're out of the crate or X pen, they're on a leash. And when they're young puppies, I guide everything they do and show them where they can and can't go and all those little things. Then as each month goes by and they could be trusted a little more, then we can give a little more freedom, maybe take the leash off eventually, as long as I say, buddy, come here. And the dog's like, oh, okay, I don't have to go over there, right? The little things that people don't understand. You always have these arguments between dog trainers about sleeping on the bed, laying on the furniture, having access to everything, leaving toys all around. I can only tell people what I do, right? I've become more lenient over the years where I tell people, look, if you don't have any behavioral problems, do what you want, right? Keep doing what you're doing. If you have no problems, keep doing what you're doing. But if you have any issues you're dealing with and can't fix, we have to change everything. Okay? Have to change everything. Now, I could say, I'm a dog trainer, so this isn't so impressive, but a lot of dog trainers can't say this. I've had powerful breeds for a really long time. Rottweilers, Malinois, Shepherds, a bunch of different dogs. My dogs are intact. I have males, I have females. Females go into heat, clients' dogs go into heat. In all the years of doing this, 27 years, I've never had a dog fight out of my dogs, ever. Not once. When my female goes in heat, my males still play together. Okay. I've never had a dog fight. And I could tell you the reason that is, there's no doubt in my mind, is because there's never a contest on which dog is going to be in control. You understand? Like they're very stress-free in knowing I'm going to take care of all their needs. My wife's going to take care of everything they need in the home. My kids are going to take care of them. Like those rules and boundaries were very, very consistent with my whole family is when the dogs are young. For the first 2 years of life, those dogs are in training inside the home, right? That means they sleep in their crate until they're 1 year old, no matter how well trained they are. They're not left loose in the house when we're not home till they're at least 2 years old. That's about the age where they could start being reliable and they're mature enough if you put in the work, right? I'm a little obsessive. I don't let my dogs on the couch and in my bed because I don't want dog hair on everything, right? But the average person does deal with some behavioral problems and they don't understand the little things like even, let's say, my last Rottweiler, Bruno, who was as close to a perfect dog as you're going to find. He was an angel. If I was laying on the couch and he came over and dropped his head on my chest, do I want to love on him? Yeah, I'm a really affectionate guy and I love my dogs and I am very affectionate with them. But I can't be a hypocrite. When he would do that, I say, Bruno, get going. Okay. And he'd go, and he'd walk away and he'd go lay down in the kitchen. And after a minute, I say, Bruno, come here. I'd call him to me and he'd come back and I would love on him. Right.
Your choice.
Yeah.
That's it. And listen, in a lot of trainers that I respect and are good trainers, they'll think that's overboard. I don't, because what do the dogs utilize in their world that's so important? Space. Like space is really important in the dog world, right? And they use it to their advantage all the time. I have to be able to teach people that know nothing about dogs, right? They just say, oh, he wants love. He's so affectionate, right? That's fine. Love on him. But this is also a dog that when he sees something, he takes off and he doesn't listen to you. That's a problem. That's a relationship problem, right? Why? Well, he just came into your space uninvited, put his head down and said, hey, bitch, pet me. And what did you do? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I'll be quicker next time.
Yeah.
What does the dog learn? A lot of trainers think that's bullshit. I don't, right? Right now, my dogs, it's not like I open doors and they're waiting at doorways and all that. No, my dogs are like just crazy as anyone's, but they're trained and they're reliable and they're crazy about me and my family. And if a cat comes running through our yard, they're not going to do anything, right? I could say, hey, come here. And they're gonna be like, oh, okay, not a problem. So how did I get that? Not through basic obedience. It's through that relationship of us together, right? They're crazy about me. They're crazy about my family. And, you know, if I'm throwing a ball for Dante, people see this in the videos all the time. I'm throwing a ball almost every time when I first start. When he gets down there, a rabbit's going to take off out of the tree line. He doesn't care. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he care? He chases rabbits with me. That's what chasing the ball is. That's what playing tug is, right? I give him all those things that satisfy what's there genetically. And there's also rules and boundaries, and I'm very consistent with him. And I am very affectionate with all my dogs. Like I'm a very affectionate person. I'm affectionate with my dogs, with my kids. That's how I am. But I try to utilize that in a way that's not unfair to the dog. I don't send mixed signals. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. I just wanted to quickly ask you a question. So obviously you said those rules and those boundaries. When we like sometimes see clients, there's often sometimes a bit of miscommunication between individuals in the house and their dogs. How would you feel like that would impact on the success of training?
Yeah, listen, I deal with that all the time. Also, I don't work with people that I don't like, right? Because I have to have a relationship with them. And so with the majority of people I work with, we get kind of close. And when you get close and comfortable with people, they're more comfortable in being honest, right?
Yeah.
And so we all deal with the husband and the wife not agreeing on things, right?
Yeah.
I'm super honest about that stuff. The person that doesn't want to comply and go along with things, I'm pretty direct with. And I'm very honest in saying then there's nothing I could do to help you. Not you're wasting your money. Don't give me a check. Don't pay me, because if you're going to continue down this road, you're wasting your time with me, right? I can't change your dog. My job is to educate you and make you the best handler possible. And if you guys are conflicting and not agreeing, think about what that does to the dog, the confusion you set in for the dog. You're setting him up to fail, and you're going to pay me to be part of that. And I can't do that. So I need you to do this. That's why what I love, and it's usually the wife that wants to do the right thing. It's usually the woman, right? Easier to work with. It's usually the macho guy that, I've had dogs my whole life, this and that. My wiener is bigger than yours. And I'm like, no, it's not, and it's like saying, right? But what I love is sometimes you get the husband that wants nothing to do with the dog, doesn't even like the dog. And the wife's kind of disappointed. I'm like, no, that's great, because that means he's not going to fuck it up. Okay. Like, he's not going to make any bad habits. He's probably going to be a good asset, because he's not doing things to destroy what you're doing, But on the flip side, it's like when I get someone to come with me, whether they just want higher level training or they have problems, it's almost always the wife. But when they come with the husband who wants nothing to do with the training, but is like totally supportive and like so happy that his wife loves this stuff, that's the best case scenario. That's where things turn out awesome. And I think a big part of it is when you have that, you could see the respect that the man has for the woman in the relationship, right? And he's not only just crazy about her, but there's a lot of respect there and admiration. And so they sit back, they let her do her thing, and they love it. They love watching it. That's the best case scenario, because every single couple that I work with in that situation does amazing things,
Yeah. I think that is so important, actually, for the dog trainers to hear that, because Shade, who edits our podcast, has had this issue just recently, and he had to give up on a client because the husband kept undermining everything. And what we're doing is like he edits the podcast for some mentoring from me and Tony, like as far as we can do that, right? But that's where I had to say, you have to pull out, because nothing is ever going to change in that household, because whatever you say, the wife does. But the moment the wife is out of the picture, he just goes back to doing like, it doesn't matter what you do, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's hard to get to that point where you let go.
Listen, I had someone had a working spot at a seminar last year in Canada.
Oh, yeah.
And she was the first person I worked with. She had a Doberman. He was highly reactive to dogs, and there's all kinds of dogs in this room, right? And when she first came out, I was like, oh, this isn't going to go good, because her attitude was kind of like, I don't want to freaking be here, But I also take into consideration, it's very stressful for people to come out, especially the first one, in front of 100 people and be very vulnerable and mess up and make mistakes, right? And so when we started working with the dog, I'm always going to focus on the human, not the dog. And I could see that there's something else going on there. And I wanted to try to break through that hard shell that she had. And we started talking, and I started asking questions. And the more she talked, I was like, okay, I think I see what's going on here. I said, okay, let me ask you something. And I'm just paraphrasing. I don't know the exact question I asked, but I said, so what you're saying is, this is your husband's dog. You hate this dog because you kind of hate your husband. And she was like, yes, absolutely. I'm like, okay, now we can get somewhere, right? Now we can get somewhere. Well, we had a great weekend. She did amazing, turned out to be an awesome woman. And she just drove down from Canada last week and spent the whole week here for private lessons.
Oh, wow.
That Doberman that she came to work with that was aggressive around dogs is now her demo dog for working with reactive dogs. And she's divorced. So it all worked.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Right? Hi, Patty. If you see this, she's awesome. Awesome woman. And these are the things that dog trainers don't pay attention to. They don't pay attention to the personal aspects of what goes on in people's lives, right? I'm big into that. And I really focus hard on that, because no one has a perfect life. Everyone goes through things, whether it's in your past or you're currently going through things. I don't think, especially young dog trainers, not just most dog trainers, when people go through some kind of traumatic event, again, it could be in their childhood or something currently, it affects the way they mingle with that dog, they interact and live with that dog, right? I've had people that can't correct their dog. And I'm a very light-handed trainer. I don't use a lot of punishment or corrections in dog training, but I've had people that literally can't tell their dog no. And when I start asking questions and digging deeper, a lot of times the tears start flowing and the person breaks down, and I say, okay, there's more you're not telling me, right? And then maybe the husband steps in if it's the woman and has to explain, this is someone that was abused and molested as a child by her own dad. And the way she would seek security is hiding in the closet with her dog, right? So a dog has a whole different meaning to that individual. So I have to change the way I work with her. I have to change not my expectations. I'm going to keep them high, but now I have to be a little more intelligent how I connect with her, and I have to have empathy for that. Like I have to take that into consideration, and I'm not going to have her do something that brings her to a bad place. You understand what I'm saying? That's really important. Like there's a story that I used to tell at every seminar about something that took place at a seminar where I can't even talk about it anymore at seminars because I break down every time. It was that brutal what I discussed. And it was me starting off really not liking this person I was working with. Actually couldn't stand working with them. But later on, when I had the conversation, knocked me for a loop. Like had me in tears for a long time, and I can't even talk about it. It was so bad. But then once I had that information, I realized why she was the way she was, why the dogs were the way they were. That gives me the ability to change things and make it better for everyone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
It's really important.
Do you think your background as a agent really helps you with this? Like the interpersonal stuff? Because I would say a lot of dog trainers go into dog training because they don't like people. It's a very common thing, right?
You know, that's a great question, Sine, and I don't know if anyone's ever asked me that. How could I say this without like sounding like an idiot? I did really well with people in my job and my career as a federal agent, really well. I would be set up to do certain interviews and work with certain people because I had really good success with it, right? Dealing with bad people. But the reason I was good at that is because before I became a federal agent, I was more on that side of things. Right. I understood it very well, right? I understood both sides. That gave me a really big edge when it came to dealing with people like that. It's a great question, and no one's ever asked it, and I never even thought about it. You know what I mean? I never thought about it. Man, you just threw me for a loop. You know, it definitely doesn't hurt. It definitely doesn't.
I mean, the reason I think of it is because I have a primary school teaching background. I was a teacher for 10 years. And I definitely do think that helps me in teaching people, right? Like, because I don't know, like, I don't want to come off conceited or like, you know, like, I'm so good, because I don't feel that way. But I do think, like, if I see someone struggling as a teacher, you have to adapt and be like, all right, I'm going to try this method then. That doesn't work. Let's try this then. And, you know, that connection that you have to have with people is more important almost than your skills 100%. With your dog. Like, if I bring my dog with me, then there's a big chance that my dog is like, nah, I'm not interested right now. You know, like, of course I can make him behave, but he isn't like the robot dogs that some people bring with them. And, you know, good on them, but that's not my dog. But
I totally get it. And there's been many times that I've been able to connect with really bad people that would only talk to me because I treated them differently.
I think it's really important that you've touched on that, because that's kind of something that even I haven't really thought about, is diving deep into the, not psychological, but like the feeling side of the owners. Like, why is it that they're struggling to, because now that you've mentioned it, like I've definitely had owners like that struggle to get to that point of being comfortable to do all the handling that I need them to do. So why is it? So I think it's something to take from this, is for me, myself, is try and build a bit more of a personal relationship outside of the dog with the owner.
Yeah. Well, Sonny, I don't know if you were there. You were in Melbourne, right? When I met you?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you were there in the beginning. I think you came in later, but there was a young couple that came in with a pit bull, and the pit bull was bad. Like he was a lot. And there was another young couple with the working line shepherd that also did not do well around dogs. He was a lot. But at one point, first thing in the morning, that pit bull got so bad that the woman, it was a husband and wife, I think they were just married. The woman broke down so bad, got so upset, they left. It was that bad. And I felt terrible for them. It was just too much to handle. Like, it was so traumatic to them to see this dog so out of control. But then about 30 minutes later, I guess she got the courage. They came back. And I was in the middle of working with someone else. And when they came back and they sat down, I stopped what I was doing. I just walked up to her. I didn't say anything. I just gave her a hug because I knew how hard that was for her. Right. And I respected it so much. You don't have to say anything, but you immediately let that person know how you feel and that you appreciate them. That gives them a little incentive. It's like if you're working with someone that's struggling, listen, the smallest wins you celebrate, right? You're never scared to high five someone or praise them or give them a hug. It goes a long way, and not in a bullshit way. I mean, in a sincere way. Those are things that make people want to do better. It makes them want to learn, and it makes them want to learn from you. You know, so those are really, really important things. Don't ever hesitate to do that, you know, because very rarely someone will be like, hey, what are you doing, you weirdo? And I look much more weird than you guys. So you could definitely get away with it, you know?
I'm not a hugger at all. Like, I'm like, oh, don't touch me. What I was curious about, though, you mainly do board and trains?
No, I go through cycles.
Okay.
Right now, because of so much traveling and so many seminars, like it's hard to do board and trains, like, because I'm rarely here for a whole month and I keep dogs at least a month.
Yeah.
So when I don't have a lot of time to do that, then I'll stick to I do a lot of online consulting. I have a lot of online students. I'll do 1 or 2 a day of those. I try to keep it to a minimum. And I have plenty of private clients that I see.
All right.
You know? But there are times where I like having a board and train. Like I love it. Like it gives me something to do every single day. And, you know, it just kind of set those goals. And I just like that challenge. I mean, you know,
because what I was going to touch on is because you're so big on training the human end of the leash.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of board and trains, that's the massive issue. Like Tony and I did a podcast about this 2 weeks ago, I think, where we basically said, if you go to a board and train and you just drop off your dog and you pick him up and you get a 2-hour session at the end, you just threw your money away.
You wasted your money. You threw your money away. What we do is temporary with the dog, right? These 2 dogs I have here right now, Keela and Rhodey, the Rottweiler and German Shepherd, they're only here because their families are traveling. And it's not that I don't let them, but I tell them, guys, if you're going away, don't board your dog. If I'm here, bring it to me. I don't want your dog boarded anywhere.
Right.
You know, and of course it gives me a chance to do more training. But if you knew how many private lessons I've done for both dogs, you'd be like, you're losing money. Because I've done a lot because these owners particularly need it. And I'm okay with that, you know? So when someone says, you know, do you prefer private lessons or board and train? Here's the thing. I love doing straight private lessons because that's like 100% owner education, right? You're starting from scratch. There's definitely a lot of benefits to it. With board and train, even though I keep a dog for a month, if not longer, I do a ton of private lessons. You have to. If the owner lives within 2 hours of me, I'm not doing a go home lesson. And here's why. When people come to pick their dog up, or I take the dog home after being gone for over a month, that dog is in no mindset to train when they see their owner. And a lot of times the owners aren't in the mindset to train, right? So I'll give them the dog and we'll talk. And I might even spend an hour or two just talking to them and hanging out. And they say, okay, what are we supposed to do? I said, do nothing. Just enjoy your dog for the next week. They're like, well, what about do nothing? Enjoy your dog for the whole week. Don't worry about training. Let your dog settle down. I will come see you next week and we'll start. When I started doing that, everything changed for the better.
Oh, wow.
Everything.
It's the first time I hear that. Yeah.
It makes such a difference. Little things like if you could do a private lesson or two before the board and train, again, changes everything, right? I don't do the go home lesson, changed everything. If someone's from out of state, then they'll usually stay in the area for 2 or 3 days. And I meet them every single day until they leave, once or twice a day until they're comfortable. Like those, and the reason I started doing that, I had the worst go home lesson ever with a Doberman. Like he made me look like an asshole. Thank God I send videos to the owners a lot, right? Because at least they saw like
he
the
did
dog
do
having
it.
a good time and working with me. But when they picked that dog home, it was the last go home lesson I did. They showed up, the owner showed up with his adult daughter. And when I went to do the go home lesson, this dog literally made me look like I never touched him while he was here. He looked at me like I was an idiot. And I was getting so frustrated. I got like a little unprofessional and I was mad. And I basically told him, take the fucking dog home. Right. And I could see the looks on their face. They were so disappointed. But again, I had been sending videos, thank God. I said, you know what? Hold on. Give me the dog. I took the dog down the street away from the owners, but where they could see me. So they didn't think I was like kicking the dog's ass or something.
Yeah.
And I asked for a few very simple things. And the dog did it. And I said, okay, now take him home. And then when I went to see them the following week, man, that dog made me look like a superstar. Like he was, and the owners were just so happy, you know? That was the last go home lesson I ever did. I said, never again. This is how I do it from now on. And when I see that something works so well, I'll always share it. And the trainers that have done the private lessons before the board and train or stopped doing the go home, man, I've been like just bombarded with amazing messages from them. Like, man, not only does it work better, but I enjoy it more. Like I don't stress about the go home anymore. I'm like, yeah, it makes a big difference. It really does.
Wow.
Yeah. And so would you say that teaching the owner the right skills is just as important then as teaching the dog the skills that they need?
It's more.
If not more important.
It's way more, right? It's like with the online stuff I do, I fought it for a long time. I had no interest in doing it because I'm like, you can't train dogs over the internet.
Yeah,
right?
that's how I feel.
Yeah.
Right. And someone really forced me into it. He's like, I'm not going to stop bothering you. I was like, okay, fine. But I need 2 videos from you first. And this was with a difficult dog, and an aggressive dog. I need a video of you doing basic obedience with your dog on leash, 3-4 minutes long. Sometimes you're rewarding, sometimes you're not. You're mixing it up. And I also need a video, if you play tug with your dog, which he did, send me a video with your dog on leash, could be a long line, few minutes long playing tug. I need those 2 videos. And then when he sent me those videos, I was like, okay, this guy's doing everything wrong. There's no communication system or clarity here at all for the dog. So when he called, I told him that, and he was like all down in the dumps. I was like, no. That's a good thing. Because if you were doing everything right and you have these problems, where do we start? Like, this is going to be easy. Like, I can't guarantee you how much I'll be able to get done, but I can guarantee you we're going to make a ton of progress very fast once I make you a better handler. That dog went from not really wanting to play, especially outside of the home, to having no worries didn't care about the owner at all, no obedience, would fight with dogs, go after dogs, couldn't go for a walk. Like that guy walks his dog off leash and that dog plays with dogs now. Like no joke. And it's because he just kept sending videos. And I'd be like, okay, this is better, but this is where you're messing up, you know? And that was just one of many people that those videos, it was so eye-opening for them, the things they were doing wrong, you know? And most people don't have a clear, consistent communication system with their dog. There's a lot of bad human habits that we all have. And those human habits are really, really hard to break. Really hard to break, right? But once we do, and we deliver simple information to the dog to where it makes sense for the dog, man, good things happen very fast. It really does.
Yeah, it's all about community. That's really interesting to hear, because I always thought, I've had a few requests of people, oh, should we do an online session? And I'm like, oh, it's too difficult, because how are you going to set up the camera so I can see your dog? It's just, yeah, I've been very
You'd
much
be
on that.
amazed. You'd be, listen, I fought it, right?
Yeah.
And you'd be amazed. So now I could do sessions laying in bed, nice and cozy, talking to these people. But the videos are the key,
Yeah.
right? People that don't send videos, and I tell people, look, guys, they're not mandatory. You don't have to send them, but I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. You're going to wind up sending them, because I could help you much more if I see how good or how bad your handling skills are, right? If you send me them, we're going to get a lot done. I promise you, right? I had one guy, he had spent $20,000 on boarding trains with his dog, who was real aggressive towards dogs. When he told me this, I said, well, you paid for one call. And back then I charged $140 for that session. Now it's $200. I said, this is what I can guarantee you. And I don't guarantee a lot in dog training. I said, I guarantee you with this 1 hour, I'm going to get you much further than you did with your $20,000 and all the boarding trains. Jesus. And he's like, all right. He goes, I believe you. I said, no, trust me, I'm going to. And we did. We definitely got way further than, but again, it was because of him sending videos
and doing the work.
You see how few trainers educate the owners on being better handlers. Like that's, I have private clients right now that are training with some huge name dog trainers, much bigger followings than I have, right? And they're good people. They're not bad people. But when they come to me and I say, okay, work your dog, I know immediately they've taught them nothing, like nothing, right? And why is it? Okay, you've done all these private lessons with few different people, right? I never use names. And I say, this aggression problem your dog has, it's not even real. And then a 15-minute session focusing on that, it's done. It's done. It's not even real. But your dog has learned that that's the tool that works for it. It's a very nervous, insecure dog. And when it acts like that, what do? You remove it from the situation, or the stressor goes away. Your dog learns it's worked, right? Now we're going to show it that doesn't work and you don't have to do it. Like there's nothing going to hurt you, right? I'm going to take care of everything. And amazing things can happen really fast when you make the owner a better handler. Forget the dog. The dog's going to learn. Like it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? But what we do as the trainer is temporary with the dog. What we do with the owner, we try to make that permanent, so they never have to call a dog trainer again. That's the goal with every single person I work with, you know?
Yep. I like that a lot. Like Tyler Muto says that it is really good to show the owner initially what you can do to get the buy-in, and then it's the owner's turn to do stuff.
That's it. I couldn't agree more, for sure. And you know what? It helps them when they're making the mistakes. That you want them to make the mistakes, so you could show them and allow them to keep making mistakes, and we keep showing them, right? Because the owner should never be scared of making mistakes, just like the dog should never be scared to make a mistake. It's our job to show them where the mistake was and how to make it better, you know? And sometimes it takes people multiple times to keep messing up, but when they get it, they get it. Right. And they're the ones doing it. So it's, absolutely. It's a great thing to see, for sure.
Yeah. You just released a new e-collar training course. Do you want to tell us about it and who it's for?
Yeah, it's when I was asked to do it, I said no. I denied. And they were like, why? I'm like, well, I've done so much with the e-collar stuff, and I think people are really sick of me. Nobody wants to see me anymore. I don't want to see me, right? Let the new young people do it. And they were like, well, I disagree. I think you're wrong. And I think will be big. I'm like, so they convinced me to do it, and it's geared towards the everyday dog owner, but tons of dog trainers have bought it, right? And the way I did it was, it wasn't ideal. It was a 3-day shoot, and I wanted a dog that wasn't going to make me look like a superstar. I didn't want like a Malinois or a Shepherd or a Border Collie or any dog with a ton of drive that makes it unrealistic for the everyday dog owner, right? So I found someone that was fairly close. They had a Doberman, doesn't have much food drive, doesn't have much toy drive. He's just a lumpy thing and mopey. And I said, this is going to be our dog, right? And it was a 3-day shoot. I only did 2 sessions a day, 2 short sessions. And by the end of that 6th session, on the 3rd day, you see the dog off leash with more life than he's ever had in his life. New place, new public place. And I broke things down just like in the book, but it's more of a visual. You get to see, and there's a lot of information. And after 2 days, when the company called me and said how many videos we sold, I was like, what? I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? And so it's going really well.
Nice.
And so now they're like, okay, so now you need to do another 2 or 3 videos. Like, we're going to make more. And I was like, okay, I'm on board.
Yeah.
And I'm shocked. I didn't know that it would. But again, the way I do it, guys, it's with the idea that people are going to mess up the training. But they're never going to mess up the dog if you follow that system. And it's not a system I created or invented. I didn't invent anything, right? I just became very vocal. And out of all the different ways the e-collar can be taught, this is the way that's the safest, the most conservative. You can get your dog off leash really fast. And the end goal is that you no longer need to use the e-collar. That's the end goal, right? Too many systems rely on constant usage of the tool for the rest of the life, constant food usage for the rest of the dog's life. That's insane to me. Like, we should all be training that in the end, the dog listens to the verbal command with no tools on in the real world. Even if you don't get there with all dogs, we should try to, right? Because if you even get 50% of the way there, that means your dog's probably better than 90% of the dogs on the planet, you know? And I think we've overcomplicated things for people so much. We really have. Like, I have a hard time doing seminars. Like, I'm coming back to Australia and I'm going to New Zealand. I'm going to England for a couple. I'm going to Scotland. I have a hard time saying yes to seminars. Ask anyone who's tried to get me. It's not because I don't want to do them. I ask people, why do you want me? Like, I'm really boring. I'm really simple. Like, there's nothing sexy here. I mean, I'm sexy, yes, but the work I'm doing is not very. Why are you laughing? That's not that funny, right?
I love the confidence.
Yeah, it's really, I'm really basic. And it's funny because the people who put this together, Nick White put this all together. I guess after I left, the other trainers that were there, I used someone's facility, and the other people involved, I guess they asked him, like, you know, what do you think about him? And like, they all liked me. We got along really well. Like, yeah, he's a great guy. He's a really nice guy. He's really down to earth, all these things. They said, well, what about the training? And he had to think about it. And he's like, man, he's so simple, it's advanced. And I love that. I thought that was like the best way to put it. And I am. All I care about is, how does the dog see things? Right?
And that's so important. I think there are so many dog trainers that get so hung up, even with their clients, about the perfect timing and about the correct marker word, and don't name it before you could do it. What do they say? Don't name it before it's perfect or something.
Yeah, and that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. Yeah, that's not necessary. It's okay to name it before the dog even knows it. I promise.
And then you get so many clients that feel like, oh my God, I can't do this because the trainer makes it so hard. So that's what I do love that about you. You do all explain it in layman's terms. Like, we don't need to have all the scientific evidence. Like, who cares, man? I'm training a dog. I'm not in a science lab.
The dogs aren't thinking about all the time. Like, they're not thinking scientifically. They're just doing, well, what are we doing right now? What are you telling me? What do you want me to do right now?
That's right. Right. I love the way J Jack uses his Windows thing. He teaches the Windows, right? And he'll tell you he didn't invent anything. He just put a different name to it, and it's very beneficial for people, right? You're basically, and I've always had a different way of, I was again way maybe too simple in that area. But what state of mind is your dog in right now, right? You know how many people don't have a release command where the dog could just be a dog? And I say, if they don't know when they're free to be a dog, don't you think it makes it more difficult to know when they need to remain in command? And that's what Jay's Windows thing does. He breaks that down really nicely for people, right? And it's insanity that when you think about the basic way of how dogs see the world, we ignore way too often. We just ignore it, and we want to use the latest and greatest new tool and method and technique. And come on, it's not necessary, man. I trained dogs for the first 10 years with a leash and a flat collar, no food, no e-collars, and I did a damn good job with really difficult dogs. And it's just, what did I do? I went for walks everywhere with them, and that's how I trained. And I did really well. And big part of me thinks, man, I was a better trainer back then than I am now, because it's just, I put more time into that with them. You know what I mean? It's with my own dogs, especially. I never missed a day of just traveling and walking with my dogs. I don't get to do that with my dogs anymore because I don't have the time. I'm traveling and I work with other people's dogs, and life catches up with you. And it's like, boy, I miss the simplicity of those days of my own dogs. It's just, I'm not going to complain about being busy and people wanting to work with me. I don't understand why, but I'm not going to complain about it,
Yeah. I think that's just your humble side. Like you say, like, oh, no one wants to watch me again, and they don't want to come to my seminars. But we do, because you are relatable and you explain things in ways that people understand. So we look forward to seeing you in New Zealand.
Well, I appreciate that.
I think end of March. Yeah.
Well, I think having all these videos, like things that you're providing, is so important, because like you said, there's like all these tools that people have been promised will fix their dogs. It's like, we need these amazing videos, like the things that you're providing, to actually help owners, and they're simple to understand so that they can actually have a better life with their dogs, rather than all these like extravagant, like over the top videos that owners can't understand, all these tools, like these ones that are sold online all the time or come up as Facebook ads, like stop your dog from pulling. It's not actually working.
Right.
Yeah. So I love your videos because they actually work. Like, I was watching them before I even really was learning anything about dog training, and they made sense straight away.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that.
So thank you so much for wanting to come on our very new podcast. I'm very excited.
Thanks for having me, ladies. I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate it very much.